Imagine a nation that is, well, larger than North America and the European Union combined.
Right, just a massive population.
Exactly. A place with its own GDP, its own incredibly complex inflation crisis, its own localized behavioral norms.
And its own rapidly emerging laws on artificial intelligence, which is just wild.
It really is. But the thing is, this nation does not exist on a map. It is Fortnite.
Yeah.
And according to a massive new dump of data, it is quietly but permanently redesigning the human brain, the global gig economy, and, the way an entire generation socializes.
It completely forces us to discard the word video game. I mean, we really can't use that term anymore.
Not at all.
Because when you look at the sheer infrastructure and the socioeconomic gravity of what is happening inside the Unreal editor for Fortnite, what people call UEFN, you are looking at the most aggressive prototype for a digital society we have ever seen.
Yeah, you are a tourist no longer. You are a citizen.
Exactly.
Welcome to the deep dive. We are tearing into a colossal document today.
A seriously dense one.
Yeah, this is the annual Fortnite Community Report from April 2026. It was put together by the data aggregators over at Fortnite Creative GPT.
And you can actually find that whole raw data set at FortniteCreativeGPT.com.
Right, and I have to admit, diving into this, it completely rewired how I see the internet.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we aren't just talking about dropping out of a battle bus and shooting at people with banana costumes anymore.
Far from it.
Yeah.
I mean, to truly understand modern digital culture, and more importantly, to understand where the internet's attention economy is actively migrating, you have to look at platforms where the users have seized the means of production.
Right.
Epic Games isn't just building the world anymore. External studios, independent developers, kids in their bedrooms, they are the ones constructing the metaverse now.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the scale we are dealing with here is going to break some people's brains, to be honest.
Yeah, it is hard to wrap your head around.
We are going to track how a population of hundreds of millions is experiencing an actual economic crisis disguised as a game update.
Which is fascinating.
And we are going to look at the psychological warfare of screen time, like how this platform is simultaneously being used as literal clinical therapy and getting sued for mass addiction.
The duality of that is incredible.
Yeah, and my absolute favorite part of this report, the wild new frontier of unscripted, highly advanced AI inhabitants that the developers are terrified you might try to date.
Yes, the AI dating ban. It is a dense, incredibly fascinating roadmap we have ahead of us today.
For sure.
But you simply cannot grasp the economics or the psychology until you understand the sheer demographic gravity of this space.
Right, the scale.
Exactly. The numbers are the foundation of everything else happening here.
Let's talk about those numbers then. Because according to the DemandSage 2026 statistics that are cited in the report, there are over 650 million registered accounts globally.
Over 500 million.
Yeah, and zooming in, roughly under 8 million of those are in the United States alone.
Let's put that U.S. figure into perspective for you, the listener. That is roughly 21% of the entire United States population.
Wow.
With a registered presence in one single digital ecosystem.
Wait, hold on. A fifth of the country?
Yes.
I mean, I know it's ubiquitous, but it's hard to really comprehend that. Is that just debt accounts, or are people actually logging in?
Well, that is the critical distinction, right? Registered accounts are just a footprint.
Right.
But ActivePlayer.io estimates the daily active users, the DAU, sits around 1 to 1.3 million people logging in every single day in early 2026.
Just a casual million-plus people hanging out on a random Tuesday morning.
Exactly.
And the report notes that during major live events like that massive one back in November 2025, they hit nearly 9.8 million concurrent peak players.
Which is just staggering.
Almost 10 million human beings experiencing the exact same digital stimulus at the exact same millisecond.
Which, frankly, is a networking and engineering marvel that we just take for granted now.
Oh, 100%. The server load alone is insane.
Right, but it really speaks to the cultural broadcast power of the platform.
Yeah.
You have a captive audience the size of a mega city. However, the demographic breakdown is where developers and brands need to pay extremely close attention.
Okay, lay it on us.
About 90% of this active player base is male.
90%.
Yes. And 62.7% are heavily concentrated between the ages of 18 and 24.
Okay.
It is massively popular in the US, New Zealand, Canada, and Europe.
So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about building a brand, or maybe you are an independent creator trying to make an island in UAF, you are not building for some amorphous, generic gamer audience.
Not at all.
You are targeting a highly specific, very volatile, demographic block, 18 to 24-year-old men.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is the transitional demographic.
What do you mean by transitional?
Well, these are young men moving from high school to college, or from college into the early workforce.
Ah, right.
Historically, this is the prime age for forming long-term brand loyalties, establishing social hierarchies, and defining your cultural identity.
That makes total sense.
So when nearly 63% of your audience falls into this specific high-stress life stage, it dictates everything.
Right, like the content itself.
Exactly. It dictates the aesthetics they gravitate toward, the competitive difficulty levels they crave, and the social mechanics you have to design to keep them engaged.
I see your point. But here's a massive caveat from the report that I just couldn't stop thinking about.
Okay, what's that?
Despite these colossal numbers, there is a severe drop in prolonged engagement. Like, it is really cooling off.
Yes, the playtime data.
Right. The average monthly playtime on PlayStation and Xbox literally halved.
It did.
In 2023, the average player was on for 29 hours a month. But by 2025, it dropped to 15.4 hours.
That is a steep drop.
So if playtime is dropping that aggressively, isn't the platform dying? I mean, it sounds like a massive failure.
It is a 50% reduction in time spent holding a controller, yes. But interpreting that as the platform dying is a misunderstanding of how the modern attention economy actually functions.
Explain that to me, because having your engagement time sounds catastrophic.
I get that. Like, imagine a sprawling million-acre theme park. The turnstiles are still spinning, millions of people are walking through the gates, but instead of booking a hotel and staying for the whole weekend, they ride 2 roller coasters and bolt.
Right, they just do a half day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The duration of the stay is shrinking. How is that not a giant red flag?
Because the theme park analogy, while it is helpful, it misses the multi-screen reality of a 20-year-old in 2026.
Okay, how so?
The attention economy is intensely fractured right now. You have hyper short-form video content pulling them away. You have a post-pandemic recalibration where physical socialization has resumed.
So they are just busier.
Exactly, they're playing less directly. But we cannot confuse a drop in active hours played with a drop in cultural relevance.
You were talking about the passive engagement, the broadcast layer of it all.
Precisely. If you look at the Twitch and YouTube streaming numbers in the report, the average Twitch viewership for Fortnite still ranges around 30 to 35,000 concurrent viewers at any given moment.
Just constantly. Yes, and with event peaks blasting past 100,000 easily. Plus, you have the entire Fortnite Championship Series, the esports ecosystem, keeping the competitive scene highly vibrant.
So even if that 18 to 24-year-old kid is only spending 15 hours a month actually pressing buttons, they might be spending an additional 15 hours sitting on the bus or laying in bed passively watching a creator play it on their phone.
Exactly. The streaming acts as the cultural broadcast of this digital nation.
So the footprint is still there.
The cultural footprint remains massive, yes. But your skepticism is absolutely warranted from a financial perspective.
Right, because passive viewing on Twitch doesn't directly pay Epic Games for their server costs.
Exactly. It doesn't pay the bills.
Which brings up a very uncomfortable reality for Epic. If people are spending fewer hours actually inside the game engine, how is the platform sustaining its colossal financial overhead?
That is the big question.
Because if Epic is paying for the servers, the marketing, the licensing, that money has to be generated in-engine.
It does.
And the way they are handling the economics of this has fundamentally transformed from a traditional studio into what looks a lot like a gig economy.
Yes, they executed a tectonic shift.
Yeah.
Epic transitioned from a traditional software developer where they make the game and sell you the digital items to an aggressive revenue-sharing platform model.
Which is a huge pivot.
It is. They realized that a single corporate studio, no matter how many hundreds of millions of dollars they throw at it, cannot generate enough varied content to keep 650 million registered users entertained indefinitely.
They just hit a content ceiling.
Exactly. They couldn't build fast enough.
Yeah.
So they democratized the tools.
Right.
By releasing the Unreal Editor for Fortnite, they effectively decentralized the game's development to the players themselves.
And the money flowing through this decentralized system is just staggering.
It is unprecedented.
In 2024, Epic paid over $350 million to independent creators.
And it kept growing.
Yeah, by late 2025, cumulative creator payouts crossed $722 million. Almost $750 million paid out across 260,000 different player-made islands.
Think about that scale.
It's insane. These are solo developers, small indie teams, people in their garages building prop hunts and death matches, and they are taking home literal life-changing wealth.
It is the realization of the creator economy at an unprecedented scale. But, as you hinted at, it creates a profound corporate paradox.
Yeah, let's talk about that paradox because it feels a little, predatory when you look at the other side of the ledger.
Certainly raises questions.
While they're bragging about paying out $722 million to independent creators and pulling in revenue that still exceeds $6 billion annually, Tim Sweeney announced layoffs in March 2026.
Yes, a very dark month for the industry.
Over 1,000 Epic employees lost their jobs, and he explicitly cited a downturn in Fortnite engagement since 2025 as the reason.
It really forces us to ask what the modern tech company actually values. On one hand, you have a vibrant ecosystem, generating hundreds of millions for agile, independent developers. On the other, a massive corporate contraction, upending 1,000 salaried livelihoods.
I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Is Epic essentially just outsourcing its research, development, and risk to the community to avoid paying healthcare and benefits?
That is the core debate right now.
Because looking at it purely as a business strategy, you lay off 1,000 salaried employees and instead you increase payouts to independent contractors who only get paid if their specific map goes viral.
Yes.
They are offloading all the risk of game design onto the player base.
That is an incredibly sharp critique. And structurally, yes, that is exactly what they're doing. Let's break down the mechanics of that risk transfer.
Okay.
In a traditional 2015-era studio model, Epic spends $20 million in 2 years developing a new game mode.
A huge investment.
If the players hate it, Epic completely eats that $20 million loss.
Yeah.
It's devastating to the bottom line.
But in the UEFN model, it's completely different.
Yeah, exactly. In the UEFN model, 10,000 independent creators spend their own time, their own electricity, and their own sweat equity building 10,000 different islands.
And most of them will fail.
Right. 9,990 of those islands might fail completely. Epic pays absolutely nothing for those failures.
Wow.
But the 10 islands that go massively viral and keep millions of players logged in, Epic shares the revenue with them. It is the ultimate crowdsourcing of innovation without the burden of base salaries.
So if you are an independent creator listening to this, recognizing that dynamic is absolutely crucial.
Where you have to know the game you're playing.
This is your gold rush, yes. There is nearly $1 billion flowing through this ecosystem, but it comes with immense crushing pressure.
Immense pressure.
You are competing in a hyper-saturated, cutthroat market against 260,000 other islands, and you are carrying all the financial risk yourself.
And you aren't just competing on who can make the prettiest graphics or the tightest shooting mechanics.
What else is there?
Well, to build a highly profitable island that actually retains players, you have to fundamentally understand the sociology of your audience.
Oh, the social fabric.
Exactly. If you attract 1 million 18 to 24-year-olds to your island, how are they actually treating each other in your space?
This was the part of the report that absolutely shattered my assumptions.
The toxicity data.
Yeah. I think we all have a preconceived notion of what gamer culture looks like, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a competitive shooter.
Usually pretty negative.
Exactly. But the report highlights a fascinating experimental study from the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL.
The methodology of that study is brilliant, by the way.
It really is.
The researchers wanted to measure identity-based harassment. So they had participants play these games using specific usernames that signaled a marginalized race, gender, or sexual orientation.
So they were actively testing the water.
Right. They weren't just waiting to see if someone got called a generic insult. They were testing how the community reacts to specific human identities.
The results threw me for a loop.
What did they find?
The ADL found that in Fortnite, about 20% of sessions involved identity-based harassment.
Which is high.
Now, obviously, 1 in 5 games featuring harassment is bad. Nobody wants to experience that.
Of course not.
But we have to look at the landscape. Because in Overwatch 2, the harassment rate was only 8%.
Very low for the genre.
But over in Valorant and Counter-Strike 2, it skyrocketed to between 45 and 59%.
This data is a masterclass in why game design, the literal rules programmed into the virtual environment, shapes human behavior.
It's the architecture of the space.
Exactly. You have 4 massive multiplayer games, largely played by the exact same demographic of young men. Yet the toxicity levels vary wildly from 8% to nearly 60%.
Right.
It dismantles the lazy narrative that gamers are just inherently toxic.
So break that down for me. Why is Counter-Strike 2 a complete gauntlet of toxicity at 59%, while Fortnite sits right in the middle at 20%? What are the actual mechanics driving that behavior?
It all comes down to the stakes, the time investment, and the structure of alliance.
Okay, unpack that.
Counter-Strike 2 and Valorant are hyper-competitive, high-stakes tactical games. A single match can take 45 minutes.
That's a long time to be stuck with strangers.
Exactly. And if one teammate makes a single mistake in round 14, they can effectively ruin almost an hour of effort for the other 4 players.
Oh, so everyone turns on them.
Right. That intense, claustrophobic reliance breeds severe stress, and stress mutates into hostility very quickly.
And Overwatch 2 is at 8% because
Well, Overwatch 2 has heavily structured team dependency, yes, but Blizzard has spent years aggressively tuning their proactive toxicity filters.
they hide a lot of the stats, right?
Yes, hiding player stats to reduce blame and fostering a culture that heavily penalizes bad behavior.
Yeah.
They designed the toxicity out of the system as best they could.
Which leaves Fortnite UEFN as this weird hybrid.
It is a hybrid.
Because it has the high-stress battle royale mode where you only get one life, but it also has thousands of user-created islands that are just prop hunts, racing games, or literal virtual hangout lounges.
Exactly. The varied nature of the environment dilutes the hyper-competitive toxicity.
That makes sense.
Proximity chat in a relaxed, cooperative, creative map fosters an entirely different social dynamic than a ranked competitive shooter. It dilutes the aggregate harassment rate down to 20%.
Here is where it gets really interesting, though. The ADL study didn't just track the vitriol.
Right. There is the other side.
This is the part that never makes the evening news. The report notes that roughly half of all play sessions across these games displayed active pro-social interactions.
We really need to define what pro-social means in this context, because it's not just the absence of insults.
Right. The ADL specifically noted it was teammates actively helping each other out. It was sharing scarce resources, defending strangers, offering mentorship on how to improve at the game, and forming genuine friendships.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, half the time these environments are acting as positive community centers.
We suffer from a severe negativity bias when discussing digital communities.
We really do.
A 20% harassment rate rightly alarms us, but we completely gloss over the 50% pro-social rate.
Yeah, the good stuff gets ignored.
In half of these sessions, total strangers, often isolated young men who lack physical third places like malls or community centers, are collaborating and forming genuine social bonds.
It totally upends the default assumption of the last 20 years. The media narrative is always that video games isolate kids and make them angry.
Always.
But the data shows that 50% of the time, they are experiencing active peer mentorship.
However, fostering that 50% positive rate is a constant uphill battle.
It takes work.
It requires draconian governance, which is exactly why Epic rolled out incredibly strict updates to its community rules in February 2026.
Yeah, the report goes deep into these rules. Epic laid out comprehensive bans on doxing, sharing personal information, bullying, hate symbols, and any illegal activities.
They had to draw a hard line.
They explicitly forbid grooming or predatory behavior. But here is the massive catch for the creators listening.
It's a moderation burden.
Exactly. The Fortnite developer rules put a massive chunk of the moderation burden onto you.
It ties right back to our earlier discussion about Epic outsourcing risk.
It really does.
If you build an island, you are effectively the mayor of that digital town. Epic's rules state that your island cannot promote hate, harassment, or real-world violence.
Which seems fair.
But furthermore, if you are running a Fortnite community social media page, you are legally required to moderate those posts.
So Epic will literally permanently ban your developer account, cutting off your slice of that $722 million pie if you fail to police the teenagers hanging out on the map you built.
Exactly.
You can't just be a coder anymore. You have to be a digital social worker.
It is a staggering responsibility because you aren't just managing avatars. You are dealing with profound human psychology at scale.
Yeah, real people.
The impact of these environments, both the severe harassment and the deep mentorship, has incredibly tangible effects on the developing brain.
Which brings us to the most complex duality in this entire report, the psychology of the loop.
Therapy versus addiction.
Exactly. We are talking about the platform as a tool for clinical therapy versus the platform as a vector for addiction. The data from 2026 paints a picture of a tool so powerful, it practically demands federal scrutiny.
Let's start with the mental health benefits because they are substantial and often ignored by regulators.
Okay, let's look at the positives.
The report cites a 2026 Trust Play Gamer Well-Being Survey. They polled nearly 6,800 gamers across North America, Europe, and the Asia-Pacific regions.
The numbers are wild. 68% of respondents said gaming actively helped them cope during the most difficult periods of their lives.
That is a huge percentage.
And 86% reported a net positive effect on their overall mental health.
This raises an important question about how we view digital escapism. 86% is a statistical overwhelming majority.
It really is.
They are reporting tangible stress relief, a reduction in feelings of isolation, and the creation of a safe space to process personal trauma.
And it is backed up by academia, too. A Boston University study from February 2026 found that 64% of surveyed students used video games specifically to cope with stress.
Not just for fun, but as a tool.
Right, noting that playing for narrative or social interaction actively built emotional resilience.
But the most striking example in the report is from the ABC's Life Matters podcast in Australia.
I loved this part.
They highlighted actual licensed clinical therapists who are using Fortnite and Minecraft as active conduits for therapy with young men.
Like, how does that even work? Are they just playing duos while asking about their childhood trauma?
In a way, yes. Think about the traditional therapeutic environment.
Okay.
You go to a sterile office, sit on a couch, and a clinician asks you to maintain eye contact while discussing your deepest vulnerabilities.
That sounds terrifying for a teenager.
Exactly. For a lot of young men who are often socially conditioned to suppress vulnerability, that is an incredibly intimidating, almost hostile environment.
So they just clam up, they don't talk.
The psychological walls go up instantly. But if that same clinician logs into a cooperative Fortnite match with the patient, everything changes.
Because they are distracted.
The patient's hands are busy. They are looking at a screen instead of making direct, intense eye contact.
That removes so much pressure.
The stakes of the conversation are artificially lowered by the distraction of the gameplay. Suddenly, the defense mechanisms drop, and the game becomes a Trojan horse for genuine emotional processing.
That is genuinely beautiful. The digital space literally becomes the safe room.
It does.
But we have to look at the other side of the blade here, because the exact same digital space that serves as a breakthrough therapy tool in Australia is the subject of serious medical warnings and mass tort lawsuits in the United States.
Yes, and we have to maintain absolute objectivity here.
Let me be clear about that right now. We are looking at this from an analytical perspective based entirely on the report.
Right.
We are not taking Epic's side, nor are we validating the plaintiff's claims. We aren't a jury, and these lawsuits are incredibly complex and ongoing.
Exactly. We are just analyzing the cultural impact.
Right. But as observers of digital culture, the fact that these lawsuits exist is a massive spotlight on how interactive media affects the dopamine systems of young minds.
It highlights the intense friction between engagement-driven business models and psychological health. The World Health Organization has officially categorized gaming disorder as a condition.
What are the parameters for that?
It's characterized by impaired control over gaming, prioritizing it to the extent that it takes precedence over other interests, and continuing to play despite negative consequences for at least 12 months.
And Northwestern Medicine has issued warnings regarding addiction-like behaviors, too.
They have.
They noted severe relationship problems, reduced physical activity, and dopamine dependency. And this brings us to the legal reality of early 2026.
The lawsuits.
Yeah. Multiple lawsuits have been filed across the U.S. alleging that Epic Games intentionally failed to warn consumers about the addictive nature of Fortnite.
The plaintiffs in these cases are alleging severe harm.
What exactly are they claiming?
They claim their children developed compulsive behaviors, stole credit cards to buy V-Bucks, completely neglected their education, and experienced severe mood dysregulation when access to the game was restricted.
It reminds me of a bustling city nightlife district.
How do you mean?
Imagine downtown in a major city. For some people, going downtown on a Friday is purely therapeutic.
Right, a way to unwind.
Exactly. They find their community, they listen to music, they decompress from a brutal corporate job. It is an entirely positive experience.
Okay.
But for someone else, that exact same physical space is a neon-lit trap. It is filled with endless stimulation, alcohol, and slot machines, perfectly designed to keep them pulling the lever until morning, just draining their bank account.
That is an excellent analogy.
The architecture of the street is exactly the same, but it ruins one person while saving the other. It just depends on the psychological vulnerability of the person walking through the door.
The digital architecture, the daily login bonuses, the limited time cosmetic shop, the intermittent variable rewards of a battle royale victory, it is all inherently neutral code.
Right, it's just math.
But the mechanics are explicitly designed to trigger dopamine release. For a UEFN developer, this presents a profound design choice.
Which is?
Are you building a cooperative experience that fosters emotional resilience? Or are you utilizing dark patterns to build a compulsion loop designed purely to extract time and money?
And speaking of extracting money, we really need to talk about what happened in March 2026.
The economic update.
Because the real-world macroeconomic crisis finally breached the walls of the metaverse. Epic pulled an economic lever that absolutely infuriated the community.
This is perhaps the most fascinating collision of virtual currency and behavioral economics in the entire report.
Just wow.
The introduction of digital shrinkflation.
Let's break down exactly what happened. On March 19th, 2026, Epic essentially raised the price of V-Bucks, the in-game currency.
And they didn't actually raise the dollar amount.
Right. They did it using the oldest, sneakiest trick in retail. They kept the real-world dollar prices exactly the same, but they quietly dropped the amount of digital currency you receive.
Give us the exact numbers from the report so people understand.
Okay, so the standard pack stayed at $8.99, but instead of giving you 1,000 V-Bucks, it dropped to 800.
A 20% drop in value.
Yeah, and the massive premium pack stayed at $89.99, but dropped from 13,500 V-Bucks down to 12,500.
This is the textbook definition of shrinkflation. And it relies entirely on a psychological vulnerability called the anchoring bias.
Explain anchoring bias for me, because it honestly feels like a magic trick when corporations do it.
It is a magic trick. Human brains are remarkably bad at calculating absolute value on the fly, so we look for anchors.
Like a reference point.
Yes. Think of a physical grocery store. You buy your favorite box of cereal every week for $4.99. Your brain anchors to that $4.99 price tag.
Okay, I'm with you.
The cereal manufacturer experiences a rise in the cost of wheat, so they need to increase their profit margin. If they raise the price to $5.99, your brain instantly detects the change, and you might just buy a cheaper brand.
Right, the sticker shock.
So instead, they keep the price at $4.99, but they shrink the cardboard box from 16 ounces to 14 ounces.
Oh.
Your brain sees the $4.99 anchor, assumes nothing has changed, and you buy it. You're paying more for less, but the visual UI of the transaction masks the inflation.
And Epic did the exact same thing with V-Bucks. They knew if they changed the $8.99 button to $10.99, players would freeze and reconsider the purchase.
Exactly.
So they kept the button the same and just hollowed out the digital payload. But players are not stupid. They absolutely notice.
And their reaction was immediate and highly organized.
Furious is a better word. The report cites over 1,200 signatures on Reddit petitions almost instantly.
It spread fast.
We saw massive social media campaigns urging players to completely boycott all in-game purchases. They even organized a targeted push to skip the launch day of Chapter 7 Season 2 entirely, just to hurt Epic's concurrent player metrics.
Which is an incredible display of collective digital labor action. A community of millions mobilizing to protest the devaluation of a fiat digital currency.
But that is what I don't understand. I get why a cereal box shrinks, right? Wheat costs money, fuel costs money.
Right.
But V-Bucks are completely made up.
Right.
It is a fiat digital currency that costs Epic Games functionally $0 to generate.
Yes, theoretically.
So why on earth would a digital currency that costs nothing to mint suffer from inflation? What is going on behind the curtain?
Because while the V-Buck costs nothing to generate, the value it represents is tied to massive real-world overhead.
The servers.
It loops perfectly back to our earlier discussion about the 15.4 hours of playtime. Epic is maintaining server infrastructure for over 1 million daily users. They are funding massive esports tournaments.
And paying the creators.
Exactly. Crucially, they are committed to paying out $722 million to independent creators. That money has to be extracted from the player base.
Right. If engagement hours drop by 50%, but the overhead stays the same or grows, the revenue extracted per user has to increase dramatically.
Precisely. The shrinkflation of V-Bucks wasn't arbitrary. It was a desperate economic lever they pulled to sustain the massive creator ecosystem as active playtime cooled.
But the timing was an absolute disaster for their community relations.
It really was.
Right around the same time, the report notes that Epic made the Legacy Save the World mode entirely free-to-play.
Which sounds good on paper.
Yeah, to an outsider, giving a game away for free sounds great. But for the long-time hardcore players who paid $40 or $60 for that mode years ago, It felt like a massive betrayal. It eroded whatever goodwill was left.
Goodwill is not an abstract concept in the gaming industry. It is a highly volatile economic asset.
It's social currency.
Exactly. The social contract between a platform and its users relies on perceived fairness. Think about the listener right now. How do you react when your favorite streaming service hikes its subscription price by $3 but cancels your favorite show?
I canceled the subscription.
You evaluate if the platform respects you. The Fortnite community is running that exact same emotional calculus. If you erode trust through shrinkflation, you risk accelerating the engagement drop.
So Epic is in a really tight spot. Players are playing fewer hours, they are furious about the V-Bucks shrinkflation, and they are threatening boycotts.
The pressure is immense.
Epic can't just sit back and watch the ecosystem crumble, so what do? They hand the independent creators the most powerful, almost science fiction level tools we have ever seen in gaming to bait the players back in.
Which leads us into the most futuristic segment of the report, the frontier of creation.
This is the crazy stuff.
The integration of massive external IP, entirely new monetization rules, and the Pandora's box of artificial intelligence.
This is where we see what UEFN is truly meant to be. Let's start with the intellectual property.
Right.
In March 2026, Epic drops a massive update allowing any UEFN developer to use official Star Wars assets.
Not just generic space assets.
Right. I am not talking about generic laser swords. I'm talking actual Luke Skywalker character models, the ice planet of Hoth, Tatooine architecture, working lightsaber combat mechanics, and force power systems.
It is unprecedented access.
Any kid in their bedroom can just drag and drop Star Wars into their game map.
But the business mechanics behind it are what's truly revolutionary. Disney allows this, but they take a 20% cut of the revenue generated from any island using those assets.
Which is a masterstroke by Disney. It's infinite zero-risk money.
Exactly. Rather than Disney spending $150 million in 5 years developing one single AAA Star Wars game that might flop, they open the toy box to 260,000 independent creators.
Who do all the work for free.
Those creators will build 10,000 Star Wars games. Disney takes zero financial risk, does none of the coding, and just passively collects a 20% tax on the revenue. It is the ultimate evolution of IP monetization.
And creators are desperate to use it because having Darth Vader on your thumbnail basically guarantees clicks.
Yes, it is a massive draw.
But while Star Wars is cool, the real Wild West of this update, the thing that made my jaw hit the floor reading this report, is the introduction of AI NPCs.
The experimental conversations feature.
Yes. As of early 2026, Epic gave creators the ability to convert any non-playable character into an AI-powered entity capable of entirely unscripted dynamic dialogue.
It changes everything.
The report specifies they are integrating Google's Gemini 3.1 flashlight models for the processing and 11 labs to generate the dynamic voices.
To clarify for the listeners, historically, when you walk up to a character in a game, they have a dialogue tree.
Right, a menu.
Press A to say hello. Press B to ask for a quest. It is rigidly pre-written by a human.
It's stacked.
This new system means you can walk up to an NPC, turn on your microphone, and speak to them natively.
And they just talk back.
Yes. The Gemini LLM interprets your speech, formulates a completely original unscripted response based on the character's designated personality, and 11 Labs synthesizes a voice to speak it back to you in real time.
You can literally have a 10-minute debate with a virtual bartender about the geopolitical climate of the game world, and it will actually argue with you.
Yes, dynamical.
It is astonishing technology, but with that immense power comes incredibly specific, almost dystopian legal rules.
Epic's new Rule 1.22.
Right. Rule 1.22 explicitly restricts developers from creating AI personas that offer medical or mental health guidance.
Which is a necessary safeguard.
And even wilder, they strictly ban developers from coding AI to act as romantic partners. You are legally forbidden from creating an AI girlfriend or boyfriend in Fortnite.
We might laugh at the specificity of that, but if you connect this back to everything we just discussed, the reasoning is incredibly dark and highly necessary.
Tie it together for me. Why the specific ban on romance and therapy?
Remember the Trust Play survey data from Section 4?
The 68% who use gaming to cope?
Exactly. 68% of players use gaming to cope during the most difficult periods of their lives. Millions of isolated, highly vulnerable 18 to 24-year-olds are logging in seeking emotional resilience.
Oh, wow, I see where this is going.
If you unleash an unregulated, unscripted large language model into that environment, the danger is astronomical.
Because it might give bad advice.
Imagine a deeply depressed teenager pouring their heart out to an AI character. If that AI attempts to provide therapeutic advice, and it hallucinates, meaning the AI confidently gives factually incorrect or dangerous mental health guidance, Epic is facing an unquantifiable liability.
They would be sued into oblivion.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the romantic ban is the exact same logic.
Mm-hmm.
If a lonely player simulates a romantic relationship with a highly responsive voice-acted AI, it creates a synthetic parasocial dependency.
It traps them in the loop even deeper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Epic is preemptively banning AI therapy and AI dating because they know the platform is already functioning as a profound emotional crutch for an entire generation.
Right.
They cannot risk an LLM acting as an unlicensed psychiatrist or a surrogate partner.
It's like Epic handed everyone the keys to a $1 million Ferrari, but they slapped a massive legally binding sticker right over the steering wheel that says, "Do not use this vehicle to replace your actual therapist or your real-world partner."
That is exactly what they did.
It is a stark reminder that we are sprinting blindly into the future of human-computer interaction.
And it is why Epic is keeping these AI tools heavily restricted. Experiences using this unscripted AI cannot be published to the wider player base until they clear the experimental phase.
They are being cautious.
They are terrified of what the community might accidentally or intentionally engineer.
But while developers wait for the AI leashes to come off, Epic is giving them a massive financial incentive to keep building other things.
The new monetization rules.
Yes. As of November 2025, creators can finally sell items directly within their own islands. If I build a map, I can sell you a specific digital sword directly.
The direct monetization shift is huge.
Yes. And here is the absolute gold rush detail. Creators get to keep 100% of the V-Bucks revenue for these in-island transactions until January 31st, 2027.
100%.
Epic takes zero cut for over a year. After that date, they start taking 50%.
From a business perspective, that is a brilliant ecosystem bootstrapping maneuver.
Yeah.
Epic is intentionally sacrificing their own short-term transactional revenue to create a FOMO-driven gold rush.
How does that play out for the devs?
If you are a top-tier developer and you know you get to keep 100% of your direct sales for the next 12 months, you are going to migrate your entire studio to UEFN.
Oh, absolutely.
You will pour every ounce of your talent into building a profitable ecosystem right now before that 50% tax kicks in.
But Epic isn't letting it become a pay-to-win wasteland. The rules demand transparency.
The consequential to gameplay field.
Right. Creators are forced to use that specific backend tag. If an item you sell offers a meaningful competitive advantage, like a gun that does more damage, you have to explicitly disclose it. You can't hide predatory mechanics.
It is an attempt to maintain a baseline of integrity while opening the floodgates of commerce.
So we have covered an immense amount of ground today, from 500 million registered users to complex shrinkflation to 20% harassment rates, all the way to AI parasocial relationships.
It is a massive ecosystem.
Let's synthesize this. If someone is listening right now, a developer, an investor, or just someone fascinated by digital platforms, how do they navigate this entirely new playbook?
The report effectively writes a survival guide for the modern digital creator. It rests on a few core pillars that developers can no longer ignore.
Let's break those pillars down. What is the absolute baseline requirement now?
The first pillar is designing for inclusion and safety. We saw the ADL data. A 20% harassment rate is a massive liability.
Right.
If you build an island, you must adhere strictly to the community rules. You cannot lazily copy someone else's IP, and you must maintain a safe environment, or Epic will simply delete your livelihood.
Which ties directly into the second pillar, promoting privacy and active moderation.
Yes.
You can't just build the game and walk away. You have to provide reporting tools. You cannot scrape personal information. And if you run the Discord server or the social media page for your game, you have to actively police it. You are the digital mayor.
The third pillar is perhaps the most nuanced, and the one that will separate the legendary creators from the forgotten ones.
And what's that?
You must consider the psychological, architecture of your space.
Right. You have to acknowledge the reality that a large chunk of your players are using your game as a literal coping mechanism for real-world stress.
You have a profound choice to make.
Build mechanics that promote the 50% pro-social cooperation the ADL found, like mentorship, shared goals, hangout spaces, or build dark pattern mechanics that encourage compulsion, rage, and gambling.
And finally, transparent monetization. Disclose your pay-to-win mechanics. Respect the player's wallet.
Because they will notice.
The community is highly organized and acutely aware of shrinkflation. If you try to aggressively squeeze them, they will organize a boycott and abandon your island overnight.
Listening to you lay that out, it really makes me realize how radically the definition of a game developer has changed in just 5 years.
It has completely mutated.
It really has, because 10 years ago, you just needed to know how to code C++ and design a fun jumping mechanic.
That was enough.
Now, to be a successful UFN developer, you still have to be a game designer. But you also have to be a behavioral economist to balance your virtual currency.
You have to be a community manager.
Right, a full-time community manager to police harassment. You practically have to be a clinical ethicist to ensure your AI NPCs don't accidentally traumatize a vulnerable teenager. It is a staggering, overwhelming set of responsibilities.
It is overwhelming, yes, but the reward, both financially and culturally, is entirely unparalleled in human history.
It's the new frontier.
The people mastering these tools right now are quite literally building the architecture of the next major iteration of human social interaction.
It's incredible. So let's bring this all the way back to where we started. We opened this deep dive looking at a population of 650 million registered accounts.
A massive digital nation.
We dissected the insane dual reality of a digital space that serves as clinical therapy for young men in Australia, while simultaneously facing mass tort addiction lawsuits in the United States.
The ultimate duality.
We unraveled the corporate mechanics of virtual shrinkflation, the $722 million gig economy gold rush, and the unbelievable new frontier where you can drop a fully voice-acted, unscripted AI into your map as long as you don't let it become someone's virtual therapist.
It is a profound, rapid evolution. And if we look at the trajectory of all this data, the unscripted AI inhabitants, the massive decentralization of the creator economy, the GDP-level cash flow, and the massive demographic footprint.
Yeah.
I want to leave the listener with a final overarching thought to ponder.
Hit us with it.
If Fortnite is no longer a curated experience, if it is effectively becoming a decentralized engine for user-generated virtual worlds, complete with real localized economies, unscripted AI citizens, and highly complex social fabrics,
Okay.
at what point does it legally and culturally stop being classified as a game entirely? When does it start being regulated like a public utility, a banking system, or a global social media network?
Wow. That really is the million-dollar question. When does the digital theme park become a digital city that requires federal zoning laws?
Exactly.
We want to know what you think about all of this. If you were handed the UEFN tools tomorrow, with all this psychological and economic data in mind, what would you build?
It's a huge decision.
Would you prioritize engineering a cooperative therapeutic space to help people decompress? Or would you build an intensely competitive, high-stakes arena to capture that Twitch broadcast audience?
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Head over to our community, The Creative Block, and let us know your exact blueprint for the metaverse. We'll be reading your responses. Keep learning, keep questioning the digital world around you, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.